Hello and welcome to another episode of Ringside Fracas. I'm your host Naeem, and today I'm joined by Adam. Adam, how are you, bro?
Not bad, not bad. Can't complain, bro. All good over here. How are you doing?
Yeah, I've been all right. I mean, it's been a couple busy weeks with just life because it's September, so everything gets back in the swing of things when it comes to work and everything. But it's been a bit quiet for boxing since the Itama White fight. Nothing's really been kicking off properly like that. You had a couple fights here and there, but nothing to really shout about. But
Definitely
this
has,
week,
yeah.
it seems like it's all popping off this week. There's so much going on. I mean, if you don't know, um, now you know Canelo Crawford happening this week, and also Inoue versus Akhmadaliev, both pound for pound, 3 pound for pound level fighters fighting on 1 week, and there's a lot to cover. Also, if you didn't know, the amount of fights that are on this week, there was a fight card last night for the Canelo Crawford event. There's another fight card on this today, which will be the I think it's the Anthony Olasquaga fight, where he's defending his world title today. And then obviously you have Canelo Crawford on Saturday, and then the Inoue card on Sunday. I mean, there's loads of fights, and they're trying to treat this Canelo Crawford event like a mega event where they put on 3 separate fight card events throughout the week to kind of get fans going. But let's get straight into it. I mean, Canelo Crawford billed as fight of the century on Netflix, which is a change, and we'll get into that whole debacle about it being on Netflix and everything. Yeah, being touted as one of the biggest fights of the year, maybe one of the biggest fights of this decade. Adam, your thoughts now? We're in fight week. We're in the full swing of things. It's only two days away. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. Do you know what? Listen, it's a great fight. I don't want to sound negative, but I'm actually not as excited as I should be. I feel like if this fight happened maybe, a couple years before, I might be a bit more excited, but I still think it's going to be the same result, regardless whether 3 years before or happening on the 13th of September. Still going to be the same thing, in my opinion. But regardless, it's still a very, very intriguing fight, just to see the boxing world in general split so down the middle. You have a lot of people that think Crawford could pull it off, and you have a lot of people that are going with, the solid option in Canelo. So it is a very intriguing fight in terms of what styles are going to come forward on display on the night. So I'm very intrigued, most definitely. But I do think there are better fights that could be made.
Yeah, I agree. When discussing this fight, I remember saying that this is basically a super fight that no one really asked for, because for both opponents there were fights that we were really calling for. For Canelo, it was always the Benavidez fight, or if you moved back up to light heavyweight, it was Bivol Beterbiev. For Crawford, it was always either take on Boots or any of the other top dogs at 154, whether it's Fundora, whether it was Charlo, whether it was Virtual Ortiz, any of those fights, or Boots even. There were bigger fights that we were calling, well, better fights, not bigger, I would say, but better fights for both.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But coming into it, history always shows us there are fights where the lighter man has come up, especially the man that's been a pound for pound great at the time, have come up to take on the big threats at the bigger weight classes, and they've put on great events that have been part of iconic boxing history. You've got Roberto Duran fighting the likes of Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard. This guy is the best lightweight we've ever seen, but he was fighting middleweights, he was fighting welterweights, he was going up and doing all of that. And we're seeing a repeat of that, kind of where Crawford is doing that. He's stepping up all the way to 168 and taking on Canelo, who's established himself as a top dog there, and as a pound for pound great and one of the generation's defining athletes. It's tricky to preview in the sense of, because Bud only fights once a year. He fought last time against what's his name? About Madrimov, yeah, and he's older now, and being older, there's a kind of two ways to look at it. Because he's older, you can say, oh, he's preserving his body, so he's fighting once a year, so there's not much wear and tear on his body. But you could also say that a guy like Crawford, whose timing is impeccable, and the main reason why he knocked out everyone at welterweight was because it wasn't because his power was raw power. It's the fact that his timing was so good, it was pinpoint. That you lose that aspect as well, and that you lose that With Canelo, it's the same thing. I think we're seeing two guys way past the peak. And you're seeing that with Inoue as well, and we'll get onto Inoue afterwards. These are two greats who are past their peak. I think this question will be who's more past it and who's got more than enough to take it. On paper, of course, Canelo should win this. And this should be a comfortable win. I don't think he knocks out Crawford, but I think his size, I think his IQ, I think his boxing ability, I think just how he is as a fighter is more than enough to negate a lot of what Crawford can do. It's not like Crawford is this slick mover. He counters you. He can box on, going on the front foot and on the back foot. But he usually likes to step forward, get on the inside, punch, move, find his timing, punch again and get in and again. I think against Canelo, you're stepping up to a guy who, when he punches with you, and Canelo, Crawford's not this defensive slick master. When he punches with you, you're going to be willing to take a lot of damage and a lot of punches from him. But it's interesting because there's not much. I don't know what to make of it because I'm predicted it, and you can have all these technical aspects which we'll go into. But sometimes when the big fight field comes, anything can happen, and this fight does have that aspect of anything can happen. And we've got Chris joining us. So Chris, to add to that, what is your take now that we're 2 days away from the fight?
I'm just looking forward to it, man. It's a big event, big occasion. It's a fight that a lot of us are interested to see. It's not that it's the most divisive of fights. I feel like most boxing enthusiasts think it goes one way, but people just don't completely understand how the fight is going to pan out and play out. And that's testament to both of them having extremely good reputations, being both very highly skilled, very hard to take down or to put a blemish or dent in how they look or how they perform in the ring. So yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it's just time to bring on the occasion, really.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to, and I don't want to kind of die, and we're going to get into the fight in terms of predictions and whatnot. One thing I do want to kind of take away for a fight that's being billed as fight of the century, and it's great that it's on Netflix because the fact that it's free on Netflix means it's going to have hundreds of millions of viewers on it. Because look, if you're on Netflix and you see a big sporting event live, you're going to tune in, even if you don't care really too much about sports like that. You're just going to tune in because you have that ability to. It's not behind a paywall or anything like that. We have to actually put effort to watch it. And for all the fighters on the undercard, and what an undercard it is, they're going to get such big exposure being on Netflix, and it's a great revolution to the boxing model because we've always been with this pay-per-view model. Now seeing how it thrives on if it thrives on Netflix would be a very interesting take on how the business will go in the next couple of years. But for most fights, I usually get the big fight feel of I get a bit tense because I don't know which way the fight is going to go. It's a good fight. Like Spence Crawford, I was tense a bit. Inoue Fulton, I was tense a bit. Usyk Fury, I was a bit tense because I had people that were backing, but also the event to me mattered a lot. Like the result mattered to the sport a lot. Better be of Bivol, it was tense. This fight, I'm not really that tense. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to watch what's in front of me, but I'm not that tense because in my head, I think the reason I'm not that tense is because I feel like the result, while Crawford winning is such a huge result, it's still, to me, in context, doesn't matter, given that both men are kind of out the door. Like, to me, this has just always felt like a retirement fight. And so I don't feel the big, there could be so much. Like when Crawford fought Spence and the winner, I knew that whoever wins this defines a generation. To me, I don't have that feeling of whoever wins this will define the generation. Have you? And also, I don't feel like this fight has gotten the publicity it deserves. Like, I don't. My friends who are casual watchers, they don't really watch. They watch the big stuff. They'll talk about when Joshua fought Ngannou or Dubois or Fury and Usyk. They talk about that stuff, or when Tank fought Ryan. Those are the fights that capture the. I haven't heard any of my casual friends talk to me about Canelo Crawford or even ask about Canelo Crawford or even mention Canelo Crawford at all. I don't think this fight has gotten the publicity that they thought it should have gotten. Chris, do you agree with that, and what do you think?
Yeah, I think ultimately the fight hasn't been promoted very well. I think the big thing that Turkey and everyone involved banked on was the fact that it's on Netflix, it's accessible to everyone, everyone's going to be able to see it. But when we actually look at boxing and the state it's in and how popular boxing is generally, you have to put in the work to promote the fight, just like you would any other fight or any other event, whether it's sporting or entertainment event. You need to put in the work to promote it, and that just hasn't happened. I think part of it is due to the fact that the two guys, there doesn't really seem to be any genuine animosity between the two fighters. Nobody believes there's any hatred when Canelo pushed Crawford or when they square up and it gets tense. It doesn't really look like there's anything in it. You know, we've seen them sit side by side in interviews with Piers Morgan, and nobody believes that these guys don't like each other, and that all plays into part of it. Crawford is not the biggest name in the world. He's not a superstar. He's not a household name. Canelo is a big name, but I feel like, especially with the last, 5 Canelo fights, he's not really fought people that have really got. They're not really on the same level of stardom as he is, or not even really that close to him. Bivol, at the time he fought him, it's not the Bivol that we have now. And so most casuals wouldn't really be checking for it. They'll check for the result and they'll watch it afterwards. But most people, they're not checking. If you ask people what were Canelo's last 5 fights, most people don't know. Do you know what I mean? So, ultimately they dropped the ball in promotion. They've left it a bit too late. They'll probably be fortunate in the fact that it's on Netflix, and they're going to get a lot of people who just, casually think, you know what, let me just tune in. But it should be bigger than it is, for sure.
Adam, how do you feel when it comes to this big fight?
Yeah, no, I echo your sentiments entirely. I think what Chris was saying as well, elaborating on that further, the fact that there's no like real animosity or grit between them two, it kind of leans into what you said, in that it's almost like a retirement fight. You feel like these guys are coming in to really earn the bag more than. I don't see it as a legacy fight. I feel like in terms of legacy, Canelo has tapped out of that mindset and has just been kind of coasting since his fight with Bivol, which he's entirely in his own right able to do. And I feel like Crawford has stepped up for this challenge because he sees it as like a retirement payday, essentially. No other person in their right mind really decides to jump 2 to 3 weight classes if they're thinking about the remainder of their career. This is just like the last bullet. Let me give my shot at greatness, but if I fall short, there's a nice lump sum there for him to take care of his 12 kids or 13 kids or how many he has. But it's all kind of that mentality with the fight has kind of dissipated down into the whole build up to it. You don't feel the energy throughout the build up and the promotion, and I do feel like it's a shame that a fight of this potential magnitude hasn't been promoted the way it deserves. But I'm hoping that because it's on Netflix, like you said, that this at least acts like a stepping stone for the return of boxing into the mainstream. I feel like when boxing was at its biggest in the 80s and 90s, it was essentially on free TV, wasn't it? In today's day and age, that platform is streaming on devices like Netflix and Amazon Prime. And I feel like Amazon Prime tried to dip their toes into boxing for that reason. And I feel like Netflix have come into this as part of a larger project. And I do feel like this could be a fight that makes boxing a bit more mainstream again. Maybe that's just wishful thinking from my end. So I do like the idea of it being on a Netflix. But I just wish it really got the promotion it deserved. And like I said, if this fight maybe happened a couple of years back, it might have more to it than, just a retirement fight for both of these guys.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly well summed up from all of us about how it's been and the way Turkey seems to be promoting it, but also the fact that it just doesn't have that it might be a competitive fight, it just doesn't have that competitive feel. So it feels more like two guys who know that they're going to the bank as soon as the final bell rings. Ra says the industry is clueless. People don't want publicity. Nobody knows Bud, and Canelo is only known by Mexican Americans. And it's not just that. These guys don't know how to do common sense things to maximize their own publicity. Like the Saudis trying to get into promotion whilst keeping their stringent laws and their censorship. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think, like publicity-wise, we've mentioned over the last couple of months where fighters and promoters could have done much better, and they choose not to in chase of the bag. But there's no point beating a dead horse because that's going to keep happening as the sport goes on. But let's get into the fight. I want to go into what we think is going to happen come fight night between Bud and Canelo. Adam, I'll come to you first. What do you think is going to happen, and then your prediction towards the end of it?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm actually quite shocked at how many people actually siding with Crawford. I do think skill-wise, Crawford is the superior fighter, but not by the margin that people are going on about. Canelo, because of his last couple of fights and the lack of competitiveness, people have kind of forgotten what Canelo's really like. They think he's this come forward brawler that's a pressure fighter almost. And it's like, that's just Canelo having to adapt to the opposition he had at the time. Canelo is a very, very smart, crafty counter puncher on the front foot. He's very highly skilled. And, you don't get to where he is without being a good puncher. His only letdown really is how slow his feet can be at times. I do think Crawford is the superior boxer skills-wise, but the margin isn't as big as people think. And I don't think the skill gap is large enough to accommodate for the difference in weight and size. I mean, I don't even think that, walking weight, I don't think Crawford is going to be much smaller than Canelo. You look at them side by side, you wouldn't think these guys are 3 weight classes apart. But I think that the fact Canelo has fought at 168 for so long and he hits hard at that weight, and, Crawford fighting at 147 essentially, I don't think his power is going to translate going up in these weight classes. I don't see him having the pop to, keep Canelo honest. I think Canelo's going to keep coming forward. And I think as soon as Crawford starts feeling a few of Canelo's punches, he might revert to plan B and start shelling up. I think we could see a similar scenario to what happened with Charlo when Charlo fought Canelo. As soon as he felt a bit of Canelo's power, you see him kind of take, the back step and try to avoid confrontation. And, the way Crawford fights, it's exactly what you said, Naeem, in that he's a very good counter puncher that relies on his impeccable timing, but he's a counter puncher that isn't scared to take a punch to land to. Like, he's not someone that makes you miss every single time. And I don't think he could afford to do that against someone that hits like Canelo, especially with the power he's been fighting up until now. So personally, I think unless Canelo has really, really slowed down, and this is all speculation from my end, I think it will be quite a comfortable Canelo victory in the end, just because of the pressure and the difference in, just Canelo's power draining Crawford away bit by bit. And yeah, I just see it as being fight where Canelo kind of cruises to a decision. I don't feel like Canelo has had enough fights where he's had to step on the gas for him to do it again this time round. I think once he gets into his momentum and flow, he's just going to keep that pressure there constant, and we won't really see any knockouts in this fight. Not that I think anyway, but I see a Canelo decision.
Fair enough. Chris, how do you think Saturday night goes?
Right, so it's a tough prediction. I do want Crawford to win. I really like Crawford, and I feel like it will be an amazing underdog story. But it's difficult to see him overcoming the weight disparity. Like Adam said, I think Crawford is the superior boxer. I feel like one thing I do disagree with, I think Crawford has enough pop to keep him somewhat honest. I don't think Canelo is going to be able to just keep walking in, high guard, just walk him down, get him in the corner. I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like Canelo's he's gonna stalk him. He's gonna control the center of the ring a bit more, and he's gonna try and time him and counter him. But I feel like he's gonna lose a lot of rounds doing that. What I can see is Crawford getting dropped to the body or getting a bad cut. I can see him losing a variety of different ways, in all honesty. And for Crawford, in my opinion, for him to win, he's got to be perfect, pretty much, for 12 rounds. So the common sense decision is for a Canelo UD or late stoppage. But Crawford is a special fighter, as we know, and he does special things. And I feel like if there's anyone who can not just maintain discipline, but have enough grit to stay in the fight with Canelo, fight back, give him something to think about, beat him to the punch, it would be him. So common sense says Canelo wins the fight. But like I said, when we were talking this morning in the group chat, I do think it's a 60-40 fight. I don't think it's a clear-cut Canelo victory. I think he's favorite. But watching his last couple of fights, people say his opponents are running away. But the fact that he's had a complete inability to stop a lot of these guys, they're not the best of guys, if we're being honest. Charlo was horrific. William Skoll, it's probably best not to speak on him. Edgar Berlanga, who he dropped, he still couldn't finish. And I know these guys were quote unquote shelling up and not doing enough. But this is the thing. Crawford is wily enough to be able to get a few shots in and to have Canelo chasing him and hitting the glove and just generally not landing. But if I'm to go over a prediction, my prediction would be a Canelo UD, and that's simply because we know Canelo is, a judge's favorite. Canelo is the bigger guy, the stronger guy, more experienced at the weight, and Canelo has enough skill, in my opinion, to cause damage to Crawford in spurts. He doesn't need to be perfect. Like it's not a wilder situation, but he doesn't need to be perfect for 12 rounds. He can be good enough in moments in between rounds, and that can be enough to, over the duration of the fight, cause Crawford a lot of problems.
So you're going Canelo decision, yeah? So
I'm gonna go Canelo. Oh, yeah, I'll go Canelo decision.
You sure?
Yeah. But Crawford's gonna win. Crawford's gonna win.
You got 2 days to change it, don't worry.
Crawford's gonna win.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you lot said. I think if I look at how Bud probably approaches it, he'll probably do what he did against Madrimov, because Madrimov, in terms of build, is kind of similar to Canelo. Obviously, style's much different, but build-wise, it's kind of similar to Canelo, where, in the Madrimov fight, he was fighting off the back foot. He was allowing Madrimov to come forward. I think he's going to allow Canelo to come forward, take the center. He's going to circle. He's going to use his jabs and 1-2s because he wants to use his timing to disrupt Canelo's entry and keep him resetting and following. And it's not going to be like a William Skull where he's going to do that for a bit to get Canelo frustrated and his rhythm off. But then he'll look for openings by feinting, throwaway punches, and he's going to use his feet to find angles on Canelo so he can hit the body and then push him back and then move off again and then start again. And I think early on it'll be key for him to try to go to the body with Canelo. Not because, he's going to stop Canelo to the body or anything, but going to the body, especially if a guy's constantly coming forward, he's always going to have them constantly thinking about how to enter, because they're going to have to think about the level changes. They're going to have to think about the feints, the counters, whatever you do. The way I think Canelo approaches it is similar to Skull, I think. The problem with Skull was he was never engaging with Canelo.
Mm-hmm.
It's very tricky to have a good fight with a guy with one partner that doesn't engage. That doesn't excuse the fact that Canelo's cutting off skills aren't great. He's not great at cutting off the ring. He's not great with his pressure fighting. He's good. He's got great ring IQ. He's a good fighter. I think in the last recent years, his footwork is quite bad. It has been quite bad, but his IQ has been lazy. He's much more smarter than he really is, than he shows. He's been lazy in a lot of his fights because he doesn't get up for it. He didn't respect Skull. He didn't respect Berlanga. He didn't respect Munguia, Ryder, Triple G3. These were fights he knew he could win, even if he woke up just out of bed for that fight. This one, I think there is a bit more respect because of the thing, but I still don't think we're going to see a big difference in how he operates. But I think he'll do the same thing like he did with Skull, where he takes the center, comes forward and stalks Crawford. He'll then use double jabs and jabs to kind of close the distance, and he'll follow up with combinations. And this time he'll have more success because, unlike Skull, Bud will actually engage. Bud's the type where he loves a scrap. The guy's mentally, there's something wrong with him, where he'll hold his feet and he'll try to pop his own shots off and counter Canelo, which puts him in the firing line too. And so it will give Canelo more opportunities for success. And you can't give either guys any opportunity for success. And Bud will hold his feet, look to counter, and he won't disengage at all the way Skull did. So you'll see more exchanges like that in between them. I think both men will slow down, because I noticed in the Madrimov fight, Bud did slow down a bit, and he had to find a second win to kind of nick back those championship rounds to help him. It wasn't like, I think it was 8-4, but Madrimov was slowly building his way back, and it was a different Bud performance than we're normally used to. He's not used to the weight, and also physically, but Madrimov was a lot to deal with. He's quite fast. He kept coming forward, and he's actually decent when it comes to his physical ability. Because Bud's a wrestler, but he wasn't having it easy with Madrimov, trying to keep him off on the inside. I think they'll slow down though, but I think Canelo's cardio has always, for me, at an elite level, has always been something you look at, against the likes of Triple G or Bivol. I think in the recent years, obviously, he's managed it better because he hasn't thrown as much as he needed to in the earlier rounds. So I think he'll again have his tank managed much better. But Bud will have the speed advantage early on compared. And I think Bud will slow down in the middle rounds, and that will let Canelo have a bit more success. And I think when they get inside, Bud has strengths because the guy's wrestled or whatnot. I just think he'll still be a bit on the downside because Canelo's a strong dude. That guy's small, but he's stocky and built as hell. I think they both will be able to handle themselves, but Canelo might come off better when it comes to throwing the other about, essentially. Because usually Bud's used to guys coming on the inside and then being shocked by his strength because he's actually quite strong. I think this time he'll be a bit on the downside. But I think as they get to the championship rounds, it'll be key for both. And I think that's where we'll see the difference. 10, 11, 12. We'll see who actually takes the fight. And I think with Canelo, I just think the way he fights, I think he'll get a decision because his punches will have way more weight than Crawford's. When he lands, even if he lands on gloves, he'll punch through Crawford's gloves. I have no doubt about that. He's very strong when it comes to that, and that will get him more. And that also make Crawford kind of think, because I've never he'll even if he's sparred top big dudes, I've never been in the ring with a guy who, even when I have my guard up, it's still punching through. So it will make him rethink a bit when he starts to hold his feet. And I think it will be close. I agree. I think it's a 60-40 fight. I think it will be close. I think Canelo just edges over the line in a 7-5 or even 8-4 win, and 8-4 not being wide competitively, but every round being competitive. Do I think it's going to be a war? Probably not. I don't think it's going to be as super entertaining as we think it is, but I think there are going to be moments where ooh, it's building a bit. It's kind of, like we've seen like great fights where, you get that like round 1 or 2 where it starts to build and then round 3 explodes. I think we're going to constantly get a round 1 and 2 where it's building and it's like sizzling, but it's not really getting to boiling level with this fight. I think Bud can win. I think he has to be speed. He has to move. He has to limit the close exchanges, unless obviously Canelo showed up and then he can pop off his shots and move. And he basically has to give Canelo a lesson rather than actually try to outman him and outgun him. But I've got Canelo decision as well. I think that for me is the lock for what would happen on Saturday night. But yeah, it's a good fight. I think it's an interesting fight. I'm interested to see what happens, especially this is probably Canelo's toughest opponent since Bivol. So I want to see what happens when Canelo gets in there, because his legacy is on the line, really. Not really Bud's isn't really on. Bud's enhancing his legacy, if anything, if he wins. Canelo's legacy is on the line, because if he loses, it's a very shocking loss. Ra says, Canelo ain't all that. He's only looked skilled because his opposition mostly prodders. That's true. He has looked very limited, and he on the elite level is why on my pound for pound list he's really slid down. And hot take, I might drop him out of the top 10 even before the loss, even if he doesn't lose to Crawford. So Charlo didn't have much of a ring IQ. He's just more athletic and powerful. I don't think power is a factor in beating Canelo. Nobody below 175 will actually put a dent in him. But Ra thinks it's more about just getting shots off and constantly wrong-footing Canelo. Yeah, true. Give him a lesson. I actually think Canelo's feet are underrated, slow but educated, hence he can dominate bigger men with limited IQ. He thinks Canelo Crawford will be an absorbing tactical chess match, but to nick it like Leonard did with Hagler. Yeah, I think similar in that fashion, but I think in this case, I think Canelo just gets it done. And I think they might call for a rematch. Like, it will be close to the point where they might call for a rematch and make that money again. And why would Canelo say no? Yeah. And why would Bud say that? There's nowhere else to go.
I can't see them doing much after this fight, to be honest. It's like, if you look at where do both fighters go from here after the fight, there's not really much. For Crawford, I think retirement, personally. I don't know what else he would do. Canelo, I mean, I guess he could have like a Hamza Shiraz fight or maybe a Chris Eubank fight, but there's not really much on the table. So I could see them running a rematch, 100%.
Crawford Eubank. Let's do it.
That would be an intriguing fight.
Crawford would beat him up.
That would be an intriguing fight.
I think Crawford beats him up.
Shiraz stops Canelo, but yeah. Anyway,
boy,
nah.
Imagine that. Imagine the scenes.
Boy,
it'll be huge.
You know what? They're exciting fights. In all fairness, so
yeah,
I guess there are a few fights on the table afterwards.
Yeah,
but
like Canelo's got. He's got fights. He doesn't need to.
Canelo's never not had fights, though.
Yeah.
Even when he was fighting Munguia, Belanga, and Ryder, and all these and Skull, when we didn't really want to see, he had fights on the table. There were bigger fights, not just one person with multiple people. He's just we recognize he's at that stage where he doesn't care about that.
Mm.
Do you know what? If he didn't have that fight with Bivol, we would have got the fight with Benavidez. I think that fight with Bivol, where he was kind of on that streak where he thought he was invincible, and he went in there and got his ass handed to him, and he lost that aura of invincibility, and he just hasn't been the same since. And since then, he's just been, taking these easy fights and coasting, essentially, which is why we've seen Canelo at the level that he is now. And personally, he's out of my top 10 pound for pound right now. what have you done for me lately? Nothing. So
Ra says Ben will end the Eubank Circus in November, so please stop talking about him. So we know who he's picking.
I hope so.
Before we move on to the undercard, I think we might as well, while we're here, we might as well do the big fight that's the day after, and cover that, and then we'll come back to the undercard of the Canelo card. Now Inoue is making his third fight this year in fighting MJ Akhmadaliev, who's his WBA mandatory. This is arguably the fight that would probably cement Inoue's legacy, and not legacy in the sense of his legacy, but his super bantamweight domination. It would kind of rubber stamp it that he is the best super bantamweight of this era, because he would have beaten the likes of Fulton, Akhmadaliev, Tapales, Neri. Who else did he beat? I can't remember. Yeah, so those four would rubber stamp his kind of era as one of the best super bantamweights. And the Matchroom crew have been calling for this fight and saying that Akhmadaliev, Inoue's been ducking Akhmadaliev. So look, they're fighting September 14th at the Tokyo Dome. Such a huge fight. Apparently, tickets were being resold for like 30 times the price that they were being sold at. Inoue is Inoue. He will sell out Japan whenever he's there. It's an interesting fight. It's also a planned fourth fight. There's a planned fourth fight for Inoue already in the works, where he's signed to fight Alan Picasso in December. And then apparently April, we're getting Junta Nakatani. So busy days ahead for Naoya Inoue. But, down to business, he's got to get to it. He's got to get to work, and he's got to make sure that he gets it done on Sunday. I think afternoon, probably. Yeah, it's Japan. I can do a watch along if everyone's down. We might do a watch along for that one. That would be a good one. I'll give my takes on this. I think Akhmadaliev is an athletic, good boxer. He's Uzbek style. He's come up in the national team. He's very good at what he does. I have no doubts when it comes to Akhmadaliev that this guy's a world champion level. Like he's a good operator. He is a world champion level. The problem is, if I compare him to Inoue, even if Inoue is past his best, he's still operating at an elite level. Do I think Akhmadaliev's there? No. Does he have the threat to hurt Inoue? Yes. We've seen Inoue's past year. The Neri fight and the Cardenas fight. There are big holes there, gaping holes where he gets too aggressive. He goes and commits to a combination or a shot, and he gets dropped hard. He got dropped hard in those two fights, and he was in trouble, and he could have lost those fights. He's clearly past his best. I think peak Inoue we saw was the Fulton fight. That Fulton fight was a mastery of everything. He used boxing IQ, power, everything, and he completely dominated Fulton. I think since then he's regressed, and that happens because at the lower weight classes, that it doesn't take long for you to get past your peak. But I think the level that Inoue is still at, he's much better than anyone that you could put in front of him. Even the Nakatani fight, and when that happens, when we preview it, even if people make Nakatani a favorite, they know Inoue might be past his best. He could still knock out Nakatani, not bulldoze him, but he could still be more than good enough to use his IQ properly and win. And his IQ is really good. He adjusts so well, even in his last couple ones where he got dropped. His adjustments, in-ring adjustments, are so good, and those are elite operators. I'm expecting Inoue to be a bit more conserved, considering he's been quite active. This is his third fight this year. He's been dropped twice in the last four, and he kind of recognizes the threat that an athletic Akhmadaliev presents. I think he's a bit more conserved. I think he relies more on his boxing, and I think he'll look to break down Akhmadaliev and not try to bulldoze him or run him over like he did with Cardenas and Neri. I think Akhmadaliev is brilliant, but one of the biggest problems with Akhmadaliev is he's open to being hit to the body, and he doesn't really make that many adjustments in ring. When he fought Tapales was doing the same things. He was occupying the high guard, going to the body. He was being more crafty, and Inoue beat down Tapales like it was nothing. I mean, triangle theories don't work, but that Tapales performance, he was getting outboxed. It wasn't like he got outworked. He just got outworked. It was a good fight, but he got outworked. And I haven't seen any improvements. Like, when a guy loses, right, Then you see, what have you done for me since you lost? Can anyone name anyone that Akhmadaliev's fought since losing to Tapales? Nope. 3 Mexicans, maybe they're tough, but they're not levels. So I think this will be. I don't think this will be typical performance. I think we'll see more of the boxing style. I think Inoue probably might have to recognize that I'm past my prime. I need to adjust a bit of my style, so that's more conservative for me. It's safer for me, but I can still win and completely beat out these guys. So I think he outboxes Akhmadaliev. He uses his feints, his 1-2s. He times him. He keeps Akhmadaliev basically occupied. He uses his footwork to get him backing up. He uses combinations to back him up as well, break him down to the body, and I think he stops him in the middle rounds. But him going on decision wouldn't surprise me as well if he went decision.
Yeah.
Chris, seeing how Inoue's kind of year's been and the year that he's been planning this year. So obviously, with Akhmadaliev in September and Picasso, how's your thoughts on Sunday afternoon? What do you think goes down?
All I hope is that Inoue just keeps his head and remembers that he's got a live opponent in front of him, because with all the scheduling and the future planning, he's obviously got, one foot in on Nakatani. And sometimes when he fights, I do feel like he overlooks his opponents. Or he gets carried away with the occasion. And it should, for me personally, if Inoue has anything about himself, it should be a routine victory for me personally. I think he should comfortably outbox him. I think he hits hard enough that, he can stop him. He can stop anyone. Yeah, I personally, from what I've seen of Akhmadaliev since his loss, I've just not been that impressed. For me personally, I feel like this should be a routine win, and I think Inoue needs to kind of show he's not regressed to an extreme level. I feel like he needs to show us, he's still defensively responsible, but he can still get in and out. He's got the reflexes to hit and not get hit, because I think everything now we're looking at, as time has gone on over the past, a past year or so, people are starting to doubt where the victory will go between him and Nakatani. And I feel like he just needs to get his confidence back up. I know he's generally quite a confident fighter, but if you're getting dropped by guys who are, for me, not on the same level as you, it's not a good look going into a fight with someone of that same elite level. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to enjoying it. I've only watched Akhmadaliev over the past year and a half, but I've not seen anything personally within his fighting style that would make me think Inoue isn't going to run through him.
Adam, I mean, we've been watching Inoue for the last couple years now, almost a decade almost. Seems like it is past his peak. Do you expect another routine victory, or do you think there's a wrench being thrown this Sunday?
No, I do expect a routine victory. I think Chris has been a bit harsh on Akhmadaliev. I do think he is an exciting fighter. He's very athletic. He comes from that, Uzbeki school of fighting, and he does have quite a lot of offensive tools. But I think the key here is something that you brought on earlier, is he's very susceptible to the body when you occupy him like upstairs. And Inoue is one of the best body punchers in boxing right now. The way he sets up combo, the way he sets up the jab up top and then jabs to the body or throws the straight down to the body. I think, as you said, Naeem, we're going to see a more conserved Inoue, where he's going to go in and box a bit more. I mean, even though I do think Inoue has regressed in some sense, it's not like a major regression. I haven't seen a major regression anyway. It's more the case of, I feel like he hasn't been up with the previous fighters as much as he should be, because he sees them as walkovers and he gets kind of carried away. And every time he's got caught, it's him really getting carried away and trying to blast someone out of there and provide entertainment. I do feel like, because Akhmadaliev is a bit more of a threat compared to his last couple of fights, that he's going to take this fight a bit more seriously and, you know, have a bit more caution to him and box a bit more methodically. Does Akhmadaliev have the tools to trouble him? I mean, yeah, we've seen Inoue get dropped the past couple of fights, and MJ hits more than hard enough, in my opinion, to do the same. But I just think the gap in skills is going to be far too much for him to really trouble him, in my opinion. I think, you know, Inoue will start confident as usual, throwing multiple combinations, moving in and out. And that's the thing I'm most excited to look at the most, is the battle of the feet. Seeing how deep Inoue is, and if he's lost a bit of his feet. That's the thing I want to see the most. But as you said, Naeem, I kind of echo your what you said in how the fight goes. I see him finishing MJ in the middle later rounds. I just think, you know, the work upstairs and then going downstairs is just going to be too much for Akhmadaliev, and he's going to give him so many things to think about. And I just don't think MJ's defense is good enough to crack the code of Inoue.
Yeah, perfectly well. Sunday is going to be fun. One question though, because for both of you, for a guy, I mean, all three of these guys, Canelo, Crawford, and Inoue, are clearly past their primes. But for a guy, Crawford's doing one aspect where he's past his prime, but he's only fighting once a year. And there's the aspect of he's preserving his body, he's not really damaging his body too much. And obviously there's the other side of the argument where he's, you know, he loses his timing, he's a bit rusty, and it will show in the ring. Whereas Inoue this year has kind of taken the opposite approach, where even though he knows he's past his prime, he's been really active. You know, he's got 4 fights planned this year. I don't think we've ever seen any elite pound-for-pound level fighter fight 4 times in a year in recent years. What do you think is good? Do you think it's case by case? Or do you think what Inoue is doing is good for him, that he's actually fighting more often, getting more, and so that he's more active and that, you know, he's maximizing as much of his ability as he can? Or should he be preserving his body as he's getting older? Chris, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I do think it's a case by case basis. And I feel like a major aspect of it works with how much are you doing outside of fight camp, outside of training camp? Are you staying in shape? Are you sparring? Are you in the gym? Are you doing your road work? How much of that stuff are you actually doing? Because there's a massive difference between someone who fights, you know, once a year, but, you know, takes 6 months off to relax and be with their family and just do regular stuff. And there's another aspect of it where, you know, you're recovering from injuries, you're doing your physiotherapy, you're working on your weaknesses, you're getting back into sparring during that year. You're doing hard sparring with, you know, bigger guys, faster guys, smaller guys. And that's what I feel Bud is doing. But like with what Inoue is doing, fighting frequently, I feel like the frequency of the fights forces you to be constantly training, constantly improving. The only major downside to that is if you're taking a lot of damage doing that, and it's the level of damage, and that can happen if you're having a year out or if you're not. But obviously, it's more likely to happen when you're fighting with 8-ounce gloves, and you're taking heavy shots and you're getting cuts and whatnot. So yeah, it's about the damage you sustain in your fights. If you're fighting, you wouldn't be able to fight four of the top guys in the division back to back to back. I think that would be too much. But if you're fighting, maybe one or two lesser guys, and then two maybe more difficult opponents, or you're spreading it out throughout the year, throughout the year, then it's a lot more doable. But yeah, it's all down to the fighter. It's all down to their discipline out of training camp. That's why I feel like someone like Usyk, for example, he could fight once a year and will come in and, Father Time, waits for nobody, but he'd come in with the same zip and the same kind of vim when he gets into the ring, because we know how disciplined he is and how seriously he takes his training. Whereas, if Dylan White or, Derek Chisora fighting once a year, then I'm not so convinced. You know what I mean? So,
Adam, you think fighting 4 times a year is the way to go for Inoue, or once a year the way to go from Bud?
I was kind of hoping you'd ask me first, because Chris has basically said everything I kind of that I was going to say. It is a case-by-case basis, and I think the answer to this question we could only find out if we were in the camps with these fighters. I think the way Inoue is going about it, because these 4 fights are not the most grueling, he's able to go in there and keep the ring rust off without accumulating too much damage. I do think it's quite smart. And I think maybe if Crawford had a couple of tune-up fights of that degree, it might serve him, some good against Canelo. But it totally depends on the camps they're going through, their discipline outside of the ring, how hard these training camps are as well, how they're improving from training camp to training camp. There's just too many variables for us to really go into and make a decision of. I think both could be optimal. Just depends on the fighter, really.
Yeah, fair enough. So let me ask you this first then. Inoue beats Akhmadaliev. He then beats Picasso in December, and then he beats Nakatani in April in that super fight. Do we have a case that he pushes Usyk out of the way and he becomes pound for pound number 1 again?
Yeah. No. Do you know when he will have a case?
When?
I think he needs to go up and fight a Nick Bull or something. I can't lie to you. I think if he was to go up one more weight class and, dispatch of a Nick Bull and become a, what is he, a five division?
He would be 5 weight if he won that one.
He would be, yeah. So he would, if he was to become a 5 weight division champion, then you could give a case for him to, usurp Usyk for the number 1 pound spot.
Chris, he beats Akhmadaliev, he beats Picasso, he beats Nakatani. He becomes your pound for pound number 1 or not?
Unfortunately not. He's up there. He is up there. I'd probably put him 3rd. I just can't, for me personally, I just can't reduce what Usyk has done on a pound for pound level. I think overcoming the weight differences he has done is just a bit too much for me personally, to call anyone else pound for pound. Crawford beating Canelo, it would be close for sure. I might put him first. I don't know. It could go depending on how the fight looks, but it could go either which way, and then Inoue would come below that with maybe like Bam chasing very, very shortly behind him. So
that's a fight that could potentially happen as well. If
yeah.
That would be a very.
If he beats Bam, then different conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what he has, because I can see him I can definitely see him beating even Bam right now. Nakatani is a close fight. I think you'd have to favor it just slightly to Inoue, but Nakatani has the style to knock him out. And I can see Inoue beating Ball. But if he does those, is a different question. Is a different conversation. Then yeah,
Of course, yeah.
If he actually, but we'll see. Sunday afternoon, he's got Akhmadaliev, and that's the first barrier to get out of the way. Then he's got Picasso after, but the first barrier comes first. You got to take it step by step, and we'll see what Inoue's got. Ra says, "I'm going to Nagoya. Any suggestions as to how I can get in?" But if you said Bangladesh, I could tell you how to get in. How the hell am I going to tell you to get in? He says, I was Team MJ until his management snubbed my overtures. So now I'm looking for them both to lose. This is correct. Inoue's do a loss. It's true. Like I think the way Inoue is skirted with danger, you are asking to lose a fight if you don't change your style. Which is why I think we might get a slight change and adjustment in how he fights on Sunday. Ra Hokum says, MJ to give Inoue fits and then avoids a rematch after judges do him a favor to save the Nakatani super fight. And when we talk about Inoue working, Japan has that phenomenon of salarymen working themselves to death. So you'd expect a fighter not to take any rest. They don't care about burnout preservation. It's all about doing your duty, whatever the cost. But he says, Bud beating Canelo would eclipse Usyk being at heavyweight. Inoue would have to beat Tank at 130 to match it. I mean, Tank's...
Well, that's not going to happen.
If Tank beats Jake Paul, that's better than anything Canelo.
No, that's pound for pound, bro.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah. You know what? That's a big size difference. It puts him up in the conversation.
I can't believe with all this that's happening, this Tank guy's really fighting Jake Paul. And AJ actually entertained it as well. Yeah.
Makes me sick.
Look, there's so many fights this weekend. Some fights I just want to point your attention to that you should be watching is Callum Walsh versus Fernando Vargas Jr. That's a fantastic fight between two prospects. I mean, those two are guys that are being backed by both of their team and their promotion to be stars. And this is the perfect time, I think, to put them in with each other because the winner goes on to become the star of the show. So I'm excited to see that one.
Guys, sorry, I have to bounce in it. So
no worries.
But I'll catch you, man, later. And yeah, catch you on Saturday.
Have a good weekend. Yeah, see you then.
Cool.
And yeah, Walsh versus Vargas Jr. is a fantastic fight, I think.
Yeah.
Walsh has been backed by Dana White, and he's got some decent wins on him. And Vargas is very explosive. He's been backed by his dad in the first place. But it's a great, and they're both young, and they both got it. What do you think of that fight? Just quickly, like, what's your thoughts on it?
It's a great fight, man.
It's the co-main.
It's a what? Sorry.
It's the under Canelo, so it's the co-main event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. It's a good fight, man. I have Vargas. I got Vargas winning, but it's a good fight, man. It's a good fight. Have you got it? You got winning.
It's a very 50-50 fight. Even Ross says Vargas does him. I just think Walsh is a bit more polished in the way he fights compared to Vargas. Vargas is pure explosive energy, whereas Walsh can punch. He's got decent punching ability. I think he's just a bit more polished in the way he works compared to Vargas. I think Vargas won't be able to get a lot of offense going. But I can see why people say Vargas does him, because being that explosive and being a bit unorthodox, you can really trouble someone who tries to be polished, and you can really unsettle them. And he's definitely got the ability to do that. So that'll be fun. Under that one, which to me, this is the fight that I think is the next best fight on the card. Christian Mbili versus Lester Martinez. I mean, Mbili is just a flipping.
I love watching Mbili, man. I'm sorry.
I mean, he's built like a tank. He fights.
I'm always going to back Mbili.
He fights like there's no tomorrow. I mean, he puts everything into every single punch, into every single round for as many rounds. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear a failed something, because the way he fights, it doesn't make sense for a guy to be fighting like that. But he's fighting Lester Martinez. Lester Martinez, he's a very good, I would say, prospect / contender. Not prospect as in because he's young, but he's kind of turning himself into contender. He's only 29, but he beat Carlos Gongora. I remember we've all been and I've been watching his fights on Pro Box. He's had a up and down career because of his injuries and migraines and whatnot. But again, these are two contenders really going at it, and the winner really shoots himself up the rankings to the top, especially when you've got the likes of Shiraz now in there, and Oslis Iglesias, who won a week ago. Those are top names to take on, and Billy here could get a big win on a big platform and really shine his name to the top. Where there's a point where he could even be like, look, let me fight Canelo. It's for the interim title. Let me fight Canelo.
Absolutely.
But what are you going with? How? I mean, you said you're backing in Billy. How do you think he does?
Backing in Billy.
How does he do it?
I'm always backing in Billy. I just think he fights every fight like it's his last ever fight. He just dogs it out, and I feel like when it gets down to crunch time and the going gets tough, I just feel he has the better of almost everyone. And so, I back in Billy. I back in Billy to win.
Yeah, same. I'm going decision. I think he outworks him completely. I think Lester's really good, and he'll have some moments where he really does make Billy work a bit. But I just think the punches will be too many, the volume will be too much, the pressure will be too much, and Lester won't be able to bring it back. The main fight of the prelims, that's on YouTube, by the way, so you can watch all of this on YouTube when the prelims are on. Bohachuk versus Brandon Adams 2, which is an interesting rematch considering the first fight. Obviously, Brandon Adams knocked out Bohachuk and is the only person to have knocked out Bohachuk. And they're running the rematch. If you watched the first match, Bohachuk was basically winning up until the point he got knocked out. Brandon Adams hasn't really been able to kick off with his career. He hasn't really won the fights that he's needed to. So I think for Bohachuk's confidence, it's good that they're doing the Brandon Adams one. And if you're casual and you know about the first fight somehow, it gives that added incentive. Bohachuk's the better fighter, but Brandon Adams knocked him out. And when you knock someone out, you got that confidence where you can knock him out again. So it'll be interesting. I got Bohachuk winning it, probably by decision. But I think his pressure just becomes too much, and eventually we're going to get him to fight someone at 154. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm a big Bohachuk fan, man. I just think he's got rocks in his hands, man. And he just deserves. Yeah, he deserves something big. He deserves something big for sure. But yeah, let's see how he gets through this test.
Yeah, and then under it, it's an interesting fight. Jermaine Franklin returning against Ivan Ditchko. And Ditchko is one person who really, after his amateur career, everyone kind of thought, okay, this is the guy that's going to go for world titles. He's going to be something to know about at heavyweight. But really hasn't got his career going. He's 6'9". He's a really extensive amateur. He can punch hard as well. There's no doubt that he can punch hard. He's won so much of the Olympic Games and the amateurs and the Asian Games and whatnot. But his career's been kind of slow. I think management-wise and the way he's managed everything with his career has been quite slow. But 14 wins, 13 knockouts, and only one decision on his record. This is a tough fight for you to kind of introduce yourself back towards the top level of the the heavyweight division, because Jermaine Franklin, look, he may not be the smartest boxer, but he's very crafty, he's very fast, and he's got a point to prove here because he's been iced out of a lot of big fights after the whole Anthony Joshua and Dylan White saga that he had. So he's also got a point to prove, especially on such a big platform. So it's interesting because you've got this big amateur who hasn't, who everyone kind of touted to go to the top of the level, who's still 35, he's still got time to do it, but he just hasn't done that yet. And you've got this veteran, you could slightly say he's a veteran who wants to get his name back into the scene not because he got iced out, like he got knocked out or anything, but because just business wise he just didn't get his chance again. What do you think about that one?
Jermaine Franklin's a bit of a wild card, man. I never know what to expect from him, and this is the issue, because I thought Dylan White was going to deal with him comfortably. I thought AJ was going to deal with him comfy. Neither of those guys did, and it's not for once to try him. They tried to take him out and they couldn't. And he's just one of those guys where he's not quite a gatekeeper, He's slightly above gatekeeper level, and this is the problem because those guys can look bad overnight, or they can pull out the performance of their careers and really just end somebody else's career. So it's such a wild card, man. I really don't know. I think stopping Jermaine Franklin is a really, really good way to get yourself in the mix. That's what I'd say. But ultimately, I just cannot call it. Jermaine Franklin is just too much of a wild card.
Yeah, it's weird career management wise, where you want to get your touted heavyweight back into the scene, but then you take on a guy like Jermaine Franklin. There's a lot of risk there, but I'm all for it. Trial by fire by any means in it. If you're really that guy, go and take out a guy like this. So that's a good one to watch. On the undercard, you also got Steven Nelson coming back after losing to Diego Pacheco, and also Olympian Marco Verde, which is quite good that they're putting him on these Canelo cards, because if you want to get this Mexican Olympian who won obviously Olympic silver, you got to kind of push him on these cards. And then remember I told you guys about Hayato Sutsumi, how good he looked. His brother Raito's on the undercard because Turkey's been backing him for quite a while. Obviously, he was on the Rolly and Ryan card. Then he was on the Shiraz card, and he's now on this Canelo card. So he's one to watch out for, because
he's good.
And I think he's on the fast track where we'll see him fight for a world title within 15 fights.
Yeah,
I think 15 might even be pushing it. So good. It's a great week of fights to watch. There's lots to get into. There's lots to react to. So we'll be back here again, this time either Sunday or Monday to cover all of the fights and the reactions. We'll try to do a watch along on Sunday for Inoue Akhmadaliev, and we can talk about Canelo Crawford then, because the fight will be done. So make sure to tune in then. If you're watching on YouTube, even if you're not watching on YouTube, go over to YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe at Ringside Fracas, and also let us know your thoughts in the comments. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Ringside Fracas. And please join us on this journey as we keep learning more about boxing and sharing it with you. And we'll see you in the next stream. Peace.
Cheers.